Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
All right, nobody move. I got a dragon here and I'm not afraid to use it.
Well, hello everybody. It's Monday. It's a new model day. We're smack dab in the middle of October. We're actually coming up on the end of October of 2023, and the days are getting shorter, and the wind is picking up, and it's getting cooler outside. But that's not why you're here. You're here to see new model day, and this week's model it's different. It's a bit of a change for me. Of course, we're still in October. We want to do the spooky models. It is this ticks off several boxes, and I like a good ticked off model. No, this model ticks off several boxes. It is for a good friend of mine. A good friend of mine who I have known since. Well, I never did grow. So since I was this high. Childhood, not saying childhood friends, but at least going back into the last century, and for a very short moment in time, I played D&D, and I realized I was no good at it. I don't have the patience for D&D. There's too much math. I don't play well with others. I'm one of those guys that will, the same reason you don't want me anywhere near a panic room, because I'm the guy that's pushing every button and hitting every piece of stone and setting off every trap. So I realized I didn't have the temperament for D&D, but I did love to paint the figures. Go figure. He said go figure. I did like to paint the figures. So I would gather over at his house, and his buddies would be playing D&D, and I would be painting figures, because I still like to watch other people do it. I don't have that, like I said, don't have the patience for it. So, good friend of mine, remains a good friend of mine to this day. He just had a birthday a few days ago, so happy birthday to you. I'm not going to mention his name, because, he may not want to know. He may not want to associate with me at all. So, but box number one, it's for a friend of mine. Last time I was over at his house on my way to Wonderfest, he handed me this box and said, I don't have the time or the, I'm sure he has the ability. What he wanted me to do is he gave me this box and says, would you build this for me? And I couldn't turn him down, because it's a interesting figure. Yes, it is a figure. It's not a ship. It's an interesting figure. And it gets me back into painting D&D figures for the dude. So, because it's a figure, it has no decals. It has no lighting. And after last couple of weeks, I needed a chance. I needed a change. And also, it's in the spooky season milieu, so it works. What this is I'll just show you the box. It is the Red Dragon of Krynn. Is it Krynn? Is it Krynn? It's a dragon. It's a red dragon. It is a Screamin Vinyl figure. Now, the other nice thing about this is I get to have fun building it. I get to have fun painting it. I don't have to worry about displaying it anywhere, because I'll give it back to him when I'm done. And right now, we're at a premium for display space. So, like I said, it ticks the box. I get to build it and then pass it on back. I'll be in his neck of the woods in a couple of weeks, and I can deliver it back to him. And I think that's a good bit of timing. So let us. Well, you can see this is, as you can see by the age on the box, it's been around a while. This is the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd Edition Red Dragon of Krynn, Krynn, Krynn. I don't know. Frankly, it doesn't really matter to me. It is over 24 inches long and 1/15 scale. So all you people out there are wondering, is this a studio scale dragon? It's a 1/15 scale dragon. Now, God bless the guy who went out there with a tape measure on the real dragon to figure out what size this is. There are people, much like the Star Wars people I ran into last week, who know more about this subject than I ever will, or choose to. So we will get down to building this. It is officially licensed by TSR, ultrafine detail. This is, like I said, it's a Screamin kit. It's a vinyl kit. Vinyl kits have their own peccadillos. They have their own little problems and challenges, and we will address all of those this week. So, without much further ado, let's get down to the table, and I can show you. We'll meet the parts. I got my red shirt on, got ready to do the red dragon. So let's meet some parts. And here are the parts, and like it says on the box, this is a red dragon. I have gone over these. I have looked at them. Since this model was so old, when he gave me the box, we went through the parts to make sure everything was here, because you don't want to go this far and be missing something. So we've got everything that we need. We've got body, we've got the neck and the bottom of the head. We've got the top of the head. We've got a couple drumsticks. We've got a couple wings. We got a tail. Here's the thing that's kind of concerning to me, and I don't know if it's an issue or if I'm making something out of nothing or not. But here are the wings, and these wings look to be two copies of the same identical part. Now, it does have they do have a bit of a bow, but I'm wondering how much of that is age and how much of that is warpage from the vinyl, because vinyl can be very warped. Why I'm concerned is this looks like two copies of the same exact part, and I don't know if it was presented that way or whether this kit has both of these parts identical by some accident, or whether or not that's how it was made. So we're going to find that out, because generally something like this, you wouldn't have identical parts. You would have one wing in one position and one wing in another. So we're going to see. That's the one thing I don't know. But the first thing you do with a vinyl kit is you wash it. You wash it in soapy water, so I will do that. Some warm soapy water, and what that's going to do, it's also going to soften this up a bit so that I can cut these plugs off. These are the pour spouts when it goes into a mold, and then this part of it needs to be cut off so that it mates up with the appropriate spot on the body. Now, on the body itself, we've got indents for the arms, the wings, and the legs, and the back of the tail. The only thing that's not an indent is where the neck attaches. This needs to be cut off, and I'm going to leave these solid because that's our glue surface. When we cut the plug off of the arms, per se, then we'll have a spot for them to rest in. So, I think the thing to do is to start doing some washing and some cutting, and the next time you see these, they should be ready to be glued together, and I will be using 5-minute epoxy to do the gluing. And then once it's, I think what we're going to start with is we're going to do the neck and the head onto the body, and then that will help us determine the angle for the legs, for the back legs particularly, because we need to make sure this is in a stance that will hold up its own weight. Okay, I'm starting from the head down. Now, I know I keep sounding like a broken record, but I am going to sing the praises of the Sonic Saber yet once again. In the old days, I would start hacking at this thing with a either a handsaw or a mat cutter, or even a small X-Acto knife. But what I'm going to do is use the saber to take away the big chunks, and then perhaps use a Dremel to sand up closer to the actual parts. What soaking in the hot water, as this has been doing, what it does is, since I've got some dish soap in there, it's getting any release agent off of this. Even as old as this kit is, it might still have some release agent on it, and plus it is softening the vinyl. Now that's a double-edged sword. I don't want to soak it or soften it so much that it loses its shape. Once it cools, it will kind of go back to its memory, but what the heat does is it makes it easier to carve, basically. So this piece is probably the thinnest of it all. It has the consistency of a rubber duck at this point. So when it seizes back up, I want to make sure that I have got the area up here. It's got probably the most delicate cutting of all of these kits, of all the kit parts that are needed. So I'm going to turn the camera off, and because I don't want to, well, let's see, do I want to be doing this with witnesses around? Let me see. Oh, let's turn it on. There you go, turn it on. It does cut very easily, like cuts like butter, but it's something that I don't want to have get out of hand, so to speak. But then once this is, once the pieces have been trimmed out, I'll put them back in the hot water, and then I'll be able to really get in there with a scrub brush and get any sort of mold agent off of the crevices and cracks. I'm just going in there with a, see how easily it's cutting. But I'm just going in there with broad strokes here on the knife so that I can do any refining with smaller X-Actos and whatnot, but it's just not something that's easy to get to at this point. I'm just being careful not to. I have you know that in all the time that I've had this, I still have managed to not stab myself with it, so we're going to hope that that keeps up, and maybe not being distracted while I'm using it will help with that. The flash areas are very well defined on this kit, so it's very easy to see where the cut line should be. Now this is why I have this towel here. I've got some trapped water inside here. Oh yes, we're already liking that. So I can see where the area of trimmage needs to happen. Okay, well, we're going to continue this, and the next thing you see should be a bunch of cleaned up parts. All right, the cutting part is done, and to my Sonic Saber I say, well done, trusted and faithful servant. You did a good job. I still have much sanding to do, but at least I've got the lion's share of, or the dragon's share of the vinyl removed, and you can see all of those parts right over here. These were just the caps that were taken off of these end pieces. Now I've done a preliminary test fit with all of these as I have been cutting them to see how they go and see how much sanding I need. And you can see things like this where, yeah, there's a lot of sanding to be done. It's a big gap filling to go in. I was most curious, like I said, I was most curious to see how these wings are fitting, seeing as they are identical. And I think it'll work. Yes, there is some sanding to be done and some customizing to be done on either of them. You can see how much edge is left there. I didn't cut all the way down to it. I cut close to it, and then I will tweak it with sanding. But I think we're in fine shape for that. My concern now is going to be in weight distribution and all of that. And do I need to come up with any sort of armature in here, or am I going to be in good shape without it? I don't know. I don't want to necessarily cut these guys open. I like the area where they're sitting as far as making sure that the legs will fit on there. That being said, I could certainly cut a hole in the center of them if I need to build some sort of armature in there. I will continue to clean these parts up and get the fit on them finessed a bit, and then I'll decide whether or not I need to put anything inside there. I'm kind of concerned about the weight of these wings. I don't want them to droop over time. I can see where that might be a real possibility, and that's the kind of stuff I'm on the lookout for. Right, so we've passed the Dremel stage on our build, and the parts are fitting so much more better, and some of my fears have been allayed about those wings because they do seem to fit both sockets, although one does have a preference for fitting on one side better than the other. So I just need to mark those and make sure that that I keep those straight. But I'm to a point now where I want to wash these down again. So I have all of the sanding and abusing done, I can put them back in the warm water and give them one last scrub down with the dish soap to get any release agent off of it. And then we're going to do the slow and methodical gluing together of parts. I'm not going to rush anything. Epoxy acts quick enough by itself. I think we should still be able to get the grand majority of this beastie put together today. But I want to go ahead and glue the tail on the body because I know how that needs to fit. I want to go ahead and glue the head onto the neck because I know how that needs, how that needs to fit. The neck at this point, the neck is the spongiest part here. That's going to be the most troublesome because this joint here, I mean, it's going to help me work its way around, but I can put a little bit of epoxy down, 1 minute epoxy on this maybe, and work it into shape and kind of hold it where it needs to go. Once I have the central body done, I won't say shaft, the central body done, then I can position the legs in such a way that they will be flat on the ground when the body is up at its proper orientation. And that will also tell me if I need to be concocting some sort of maybe rocky base that I can glue this thing down. If it does not want to balance itself, I might have to pin it in such a way that I take that out of the equation. That just leaves those wings. I'm not really worried about the joints ever, deforming. I guess I'm kind of worried about over time whether it's going to pull the body out, and maybe I need to fill that with a solid material before I put the neck on. So that's, that could be a thing. That could be a thing. I could, this is just me thinking on the go here, I could put the tail, and that once I put the tail on, that'll tell me how the bottom legs need to go. If I did the tail and arms and wings, and then did the head separately, and then glued the head on at the end, that way if I have to go, I will still have access inside the body in case I need to do any reinforcing of the wing areas. That might be a way to go, and then I could leave. I mean, I could still do the head. I could still put the head on the neck there and prime it, maybe even start painting it. But as far as gluing it down, because that's a fairly good, clean glue joint, if I left this off, then I could do any modification to the inside through the big open hole. That may be the way to go. Well, I'm going to give these guys another soak in the warm water, and then we'll further figure out how we're going to attack it. Alrighty, construction is well underway on the Red Dragon, and I'm using epoxy. I know a lot of people would recommend using CA for this, but I like epoxy. It does take a lot longer than CA to set up, but it's got that elastic in it. I mean, it'll give a little bit more so than CA, which has a tendency to set and then crack, particularly on a surface like vinyl that has some give to it. I mean, you could squeeze this and pull it out of shape and all that, and CA is just not going to like that. Whereas epoxy has some give to it. Plus, if you overstuff it, it also expands to fill the gaps. Now, the smaller the opening, the less flexibility you have, which kind of makes sense. These arms, or the shoulder joints and the thigh joints, have next to no flexibility in them. I'm very happy with how the tail has gone on. That's nice and clean. Of course, a lot of these will be cleaned up or tooled in a little bit with some putty and whatnot. But we're ready here on the base. I think I want to go ahead and set the leg in. This leg has a very obvious good looking seam to it, and that's going to, so that's the next joint we're going to put in. And then putting the left leg in will complete the tripod of the two legs and the tail for it to have its balance. And then once we do that, we can think about putting the arms and wings in. And once we do that, that will allow us to see if any reinforcing is going to be needed before we put the head on. Now, the head has also been firmly attached, but even now you can still see I can bend the nose. This headpiece is a lot softer than the other vinyl bits. Of course, once all this is done, it will get a liberal dosing with a adhesion promoter or a vinyl based paint that will allow you the regular paints to stick to it. So I'm thinking the next thing needs to be done, and I'm just using 1 minute epoxy without the syringe. Actually, I think this one's almost empty. We'll see if there's anything left. If not, we'll use the 5 minute, which is these two guys. But we're going to go ahead and put this last leg in, and I'm taking it slow and steady, not trying to do too much at any one time. Yeah, I think there's enough. I think there's enough glue there for one last hurrah before we chuck this syringe out. Okay, clean that off. I can toss the rest of that. But I think there's enough left on here that we can at least do this leg. Well, I am continuing work on the dragon here. I've got the right or the left leg in now, and these are forming the tripod, which will help it sit by itself. I have not come up against what I would call the first thing I would call a gap in these parts. I really like how they've been fitting together. All I did was cut the excess flashing off and then sand it down to the pre-sculpted in part lines, and when I go to put them together, they've been fitting really nicely, which is surprising for a kit of this age. It has a 1992 copyright notice on it, so I'm assuming that's probably the first run of it. I don't know how many runs they did, but I'm assuming this is a 31-year-old kit, and it's holding together very nicely, particularly for vinyl, which can, warp and shrink and do all that kind of stuff over time. But this is the first thing I would say that is, remotely resembling a gap. And what I'm going to do is fill that in with a little bit of the clear epoxy, just to fill that gap in. My goal is to get the other arms and the wings on this tonight, and let it set overnight. I won't attach the head to it. I won't do that much. But I want to do the rest of it to see whether or not it'll hold up. If it doesn't show any signs of drooping or falling over or any of that kind of stuff, then I'll know it's not going to need any more reinforcing on the inside, and I can go ahead and glue the top on and then fill in the cracks with a little bit of the epoxy sculpt and tool back in the scales and such. But there's no sense doing that unless I know it's going to hold itself up. Now see, this guy, by the time I put him on here, that's really going to help hold up these wings. So I may find that I really don't need to do any reinforcing. Now this front arm looks to be a little bit different issue because it's raised up, and I am seeing a gap underneath there. But all of a sudden now I've got 4 points where it's hitting the ground, so that's going to take a lot of the weight off of it. It should be no big surprise that the wings are not going to go on as nicely and easily as the other limbs. So I've had to do some sanding, some grinding out of the socket. I've had to put some epoxy in there, kind of fill it in with both the steel stick and the water well. The steel stick is less pliable, but it sets up a lot quicker, and that's where I think I need it on the support on the underside. So I've got a rubber band holding the wing in the right orientation. I've got it sitting in a pool of epoxy, and then I've started sculpting some putty around the sides to kind of buttress that back up into shape. But that's what's got to be done to make that fit. I'm also taking some of this putty, since you kind of have to use it while you've got it before it sets up, and I'm just poking it into some of these other big creases, like on the legs back here, just to use it up more or less. The seams, the part seams are kind of obvious here, and although I could hide that with folds of flesh and paint, it doesn't hurt to use up some putty while I have it here. Strengthen these joints. Okay, this is a lovely place to stop for today. I've got everything on the body put together. Now this last wing, this right hand wing, this right wing man, I have this is the last piece on, and I'm going to let that epoxy set up a little bit. But we're to a point now where we can basically let everything just kind of sit, and then I will let's see, I need to prop that up a little bit. What is the right height here to let that prop? Let me see, pardon my reach. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, we're gonna let that set up, and then we're gonna do the stress testing on it. We'll put it in position and come back to it tomorrow and see if everything is still in shape, or if it has started drooping. If it passes that test, then we will put the head on it and start the painting process. Well, welcome back, everybody. It's Tuesday. I say welcome back to you. You didn't go anywhere. I'm the one that, took a few hours off to lay my weary head down. But I'm back at the Dragon today, and the good news is everything seems to be pretty much where I left it. No distortions or cracks or anything seem to have reared their ugly heads. I'm ready to do some of the seam work. The putty that I put in here, or the steel stick that I put in, has hardened up. It's hard as a rock, and I can tool that now with the Dremel and some grinders. The last bit of work to do is to attach the head, and like I said, I wasn't going to do that until I was reasonably assured, even though some might say that simple overnight was not a long enough test. I say nay to those people, and I may be proven wrong, but what the heck, only got one life. I need to get on with this. So we've left this. It's sitting nicely. It's pretty much where I left it last night. The wings didn't do anything untoward. I have yet to put the head on. Now, it struck me that trying to seal this edge here with another hollow edge on the neck was going to be a fool's errand. So what I've done is I've put this in this morning, and I basically just put a strip of sheet stock in there, and that's going to act like a tube. That's going to give me more gluing surface. I can now lay a whole bunch of the epoxy in here, and that gives me more glue surface, so that when I put it in the body, it acts like a sleeve and gives me more area for that to sit in, rather than trying to just butt end two tubes together. There's a little bit of sanding or grinding I need to do right in this spot before I can get this fit just the way I want it. And then the next step after that will be to putty in this joint, and we'll get some paint on this today. Now, the paint we have to use is a special paint that I picked up at the auto parts store. It is made for vinyl and fabric, and what that's going to do is it's going to give me a good base that I can use to put my regular paints on top of it. That will guarantee that it sticks to this vinyl. Now, you could use an adhesion promoter, and most times I would do that, but since I had this specialized vinyl paint, I would decide to go ahead and do that first. Plus, it's going to give me a darker gray color. It's got a primer color in it, whereas the adhesion promoter is clear, and that means I still have to paint a base coat over it. So what I'm thinking is get the neck glued in, get the joint sanded down, and then get that base coat on, and that would be because that stuff needs to dry. That might be all we get done today. Make up for the fact that we got so much done yesterday by not getting a lot done today. All right, we have the last of the building done. The head is on, the neck is secure. There's only one real gappy spot that I need to take care of, which I can with some putty, because the nice thing about this is that you can always make it look like a roll of flesh or something that's been squeezed up into those joints, but we're in good shape here. I think I would like to do some preliminary tooling with the Dremel, but really hit it with that primer paint so that I can really see what needs to be touched up. And then we can go about the business of starting to paint this. I'm already thinking ahead as to what I'd like to do with it. Now, it is a red dragon, so it's going to be predominantly red, but it's not going to be cardinal red. I think I'm going to make it more of a reddish brown. I mean, certainly have highlights of red, but it'll be in the hull red. Maybe that is the color scheme. So I can hit it with that brown primer, the terracotta primer, after the vinyl paint. That'll give me a good base for everything, and then I can start airbrushing in my highlight colors on top of that. Now, it's true that I am very, 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 very much tempted to use some color shifting. I want to use it very, very sparingly. Maybe just on the membranes of the wings and not everywhere. And of course, we've got an opportunity for another color for the spines down the back and the chest. And going by what's available online, it is a stereotypical brownish ochre color through here, almost up to a yellow. So we're going to have to see whether we want to go the expected route or whether we want to maybe try something a little bit different. I think I will end up going in that color scheme. I just don't know how vibrant it's going to be. Okay, I feel like a Visine because I just got the red out. It's an old joke. Sorry, folks. I'm tired. I've got the vinyl spray on here. Now, this is Duplicolor spray made specifically for vinyl and fabric. And it's going to give me the best underlayment that I can hope for. And then I can start adding color on top of it. Now, it did point out some places that definitely need to have some touch-up done. And I'm going to be doing the touch-up with Steel Stick because this is Steel Stick color. Some obvious gaps, like right in here. Not a gap, but a divot or a dimple that needs to be covered in. I can do that there. And refreshingly, it also covered up a lot of the stuff that I had done, particularly on the wings. It had covered up a lot of those joints, and I don't have to do the tooling work on there that I was thinking I was going to have to. So I'm thinking it's about even money. Some of the stuff I don't have to do that I thought I was going to, and some of the stuff I have to do that I didn't think I was going to need to. So I think we're about even on the balance sheet on that. So we're going to let this dry for a good long time and then come back to it and do some of that puttying in, like right around that neck joint there. It's a little bit too obvious for my taste. Can't really disguise that as a fold. Something around the shoulder or around the hip you can, but that one right there, and I think the joint, that's mostly okay there. I think I might have to do some on the underside where the seam is a little bit too apparent. This is where we're going to finish for today. Now, in the end, I opted to go with epoxy sculpt for these places where I wanted to fill in the gaps, and I did that for one very good reason. I started with the Steel Stick and then realized I couldn't see what I was doing. My eyesight has gone, no sense trying to make it more difficult for myself than I need to. Since it's going to be drying overnight anyway, I might as well use something that's easier to work with. So some epoxy sculpt in the joints,
And some of the joints didn't really need it, but I thought I needed to maybe fix a contour or something. So while I had it out, I just touched up a few of those spots. Probably, I don't know whether you would characterize it as worse, but probably more noticeable on this shoulder, only because of the change in contour. And I thought it was a good opportunity to put like an extra fold of flesh there. Some spots it's simply a question of filling in a gap or a hole, and in some places it really needed correction. Okay, so that's good. We are going to have to. One thing you got to remember about epoxy sculpt is that it takes a while for it to set up. So if you are handling it, and you've tooled in a texture, sometimes you can mistakenly step on top of that texture by handling it and putting your stupid thumb in the middle of it, which will flatten that texture back down, which is, say it with me, no bueno. So we need to put that back in physically. Just checking around here and seeing, making sure everything is happy and yay and good. Okay, where would be a great spot tomorrow? I'll hit this with a light coat of that brownish, the terracotta-ish primer. That'll get us a good base coat. That'll get us started on our red spectrum without having to make the red paint work overly hard. And we'll take it from there. Well, good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, and the name of the game today is time management. So many different things are juggled on a daily basis around here that you may not even be aware of. Today's example is I am working on an order for Steve. Got to get that out the door, but I also want to keep on schedule with the Dragons. So what I've had to do, actually, it works out very well in this instance, is this morning got up extra early, got a few things ready, and then I put a base coat of the brownish red on the Dragon, and I am letting that dry because this is one of those big rattle can paint and primer deals. It takes a lot longer to dry than your normal auto paint. So that's good because I can spray this, give it a good coating, and it can be drying, and in time that I would normally be twiddling my thumbs waiting for it to dry, I can be putting an order together. So that's what I'm doing kind of in the background. After that happens, possibly after lunch, I will be able to come back in here and start putting some basic colors down. So things are progressing. Like I said, I would normally be at a standstill at this point anyway, so may as well make vinyl while the sun shines. Because I know I'm going to get questions about this, I figured I'd go ahead and spill the beans now rather than wait for all the comments. So when I say I used vinyl and fabric paint, this is what I used. Vinyl and fabric specialty coating, Duplicolor. It's available at your automotive parts store. It is made for, it says, ideal for dashboards, door panels, seats, and carpet. I don't think I'd ever try to paint carpet with it, but it's made to stick to flexible surfaces. So that's what I used on top of the bare vinyl. And this is the base coat that I used. It's satin brick. You might remember this. This was one of the failed colors from the Ferengi ship, but I won't say failed colors. It was one of the preliminary colors that I started on before I chose what I ultimately chose. But this satin brick is also it's one of those paint and primer deals. So it goes on a little bit thick. Therefore, it takes a little bit longer to dry and cure and all of that. So we're still sitting waiting for that to happen. The good news is I finished putting the order together. All I need to do now is to run it to the post office. And when I get back, this might be in a good position where we can start painting on it. Alrighty, I'm just putting some major colors down, just the big blocky colors. And got some reds on the skin and the yellows in the scales and on the neck piece, the belly, and on the big scales going down the back. And then I looked at it and I started thinking, well, is that too stereotypical? Is that too basic? And then I realized, well, this is where a lot of the archetypes of dragons are coming from. This is a D&D dragon. Outside of your Dragon Slayer movie, and you remember this is from an era before Game of Thrones and before How to Train Your Dragon, and before a lot of dragon lore. This is the prototype. This is the archetype dragon. So yeah, it might be a little what you would call remedial, but actually this is more archetypical coloring. So I've got the red in, I've got the yellow in. I want to go in with a brown to kind of set in some of the darker creases, and then we'll let all that dry, and then we'll come back to it and start refining it and start making it a little bit more realistic. But for right now, this is accomplishing the goal of kind of showing me where the colors are going to lay down and how they're going to relate to each other. Okay, I'm pulling back the camera so we can get the whole thing in picture. But I've just gone over it with some blacks and some very dark browns to kind of throw some shadows in. And this is giving me my basic color massing. So now I can start working out the details and highlights and refining the areas, like making a sharper line between the scales and the side, like this area here. I need to refine all of those shapes and make that look more cohesive, or clean it up, make it look neater. But this is giving me my basic darks and lights, and we'll let this dry, and I think this might be the extent of today's work, and then we'll come and start hitting areas of it tomorrow, because it needs a good overnight dry, I think, at this point. Morning, everybody. It is Wednesday. No, it's Thursday. It's Thursday already. The week is just flying by. And we're continuing on the dragon here, the red dragon of Krynn. Basically I'm continuing what I started yesterday, which is to start to refine the shapes and the boundaries between the colors. I really like what's going on. Usually this is how something happens when I'm working with a creature, sometimes on a person, but mostly on a creature. I'll stumble upon, or through repetition and sheer just doing it over and over, which is repetition, I'll stumble upon a technique and a combination of colors that I like, or an outcome that I like, and then I seek to replicate that all over. In this instance, I really like what's going on here, and I'm trying to carry those colors over, the combination of highlights and shadows, that sort of thing, over to the rest of the subject at hand. Now, because this is a vinyl kit, because it is the nature of what it is, the detail is kind of soft. I mean, the teeth are kind of more round than they would be sharp if you were dealing with something that was resin, whether it was cast resin or printed. The detail would be a lot crisper, a lot sharper. That's just nature of the beast type of stuff. This is akin to a styrene kit. Thank you. Akin to a styrene kit, where there's a certain amount of detail, a certain amount of crispness that you get. But I would say that even a step lower than that is how it looks on a vinyl kit. And no matter how much or how realistically you paint it, there's still a certain, what I'm calling a certain rubber duckiness to it. I know that's not the industry term, but it's what I'm calling. There's a certain rubber duckiness to it. If you squeeze these parts, they will squeeze. I did not fill any of this. I ended up not filling it with any sort of reinforcing material. It just turned out that I don't feel that it needs it. no single part of this is has any great strain on it. It looks kind of more impressive in aggregate than it does when you break it down individually. Cumulatively, I guess is the word I wanted to use. Cumulatively, it is not that stressful of a shape. There's no great amount of weight being carried by any single piece. So it's hanging together real nice without the need for a bunch of reinforcing. And I think that's because of the design of the 3 points here, the front, the right claw, both back claws and the tail are on the ground, so the weight distribution is doing its job. If this were maybe a person or something where there was a lot of cantilevered weight on it, you might find that it needs some reinforcing. But this is hanging together pretty good. But there is a certain amount of rubber duckiness to it. So it looks more substantial when you look at it than it does when you actually pick it up. So that's the kind of thing I'm struggling with. You don't want to take it for granted. You still want to try to move it around gently. You don't want to think that it's going to stand up to a bunch of abuse. So all I'm doing here, I've got the mouth where I've got a base color in here. I want to put a red. Look at that bite. Look at that bite. I'm going to put a more of a blood. That's a problem with this kit because the subject is a red dragon. You've got a red mouth inside a red dragon. Well, how do you make that look different? And you don't really, because it would be a red mouth whether this was a green dragon, a blue dragon, or a purple dragon. It would still have the flesh color inside the mouth. As one great person wrote many, many years ago, we're all pink on the inside. So that's something to kind of remember. I'm going to put a wash over here to get in and around the tongue and the gums, and then we'll start hitting the top of the teeth. Although I don't want to make them white, I do want to make them the same bone color as evidence on all of these spines and the nails. Now these are a little bit brighter now because I paint them bright, and then I'll use a sienna wash over them to dirty them down, and I'll do the same thing with the horns and the spikes going down the back. I've got a color combination that I really like on the neck, on these scales here, that I want to continue that around the rest of it, which means darkening up this side, darkening up this boundary where it hits the red, and then I can put more of a wash over top of that. So it's at this point I've kind of gotten the figuring done. I just need to carry the technique all over. Okay, I'm doing some nails right now. I'm doing his claws, and you saw how I had the bright bone color painted on there first. Well, now I'm using a wash of brown. Nothing special, just Liquitex brown, and I'm going in around the base of the nail, or the claw, just dabbing on some of the brown, and then I'll take a Q-tip. Other brands are available. I just use that as a generic term, and just wiping it on. And I'm having some fun with aging on this because, unlike some other creatures, this creature can be absolutely ancient and can have a lot of wear and tear and scars and dirt under his nails. So many times I get where I'm working on a creature and I get too close to the logic of it, and I start second guessing myself. Like the typical, I'll get off of the soapbox in a second here. The typical gremlin that you see painted is always shown with yellowed teeth and really disgusting nails, when in reality they are brand new creatures. They just molted. So why would they have come out of the nest or come out of the egg, or the cocoon, with dirty nails that look like they're 100 years old? Well, it doesn't make any sense. They're brand new creatures. So here we have an instance where this dragon can be absolutely ancient, and as such can be worn down and aged and scarred and dirty and pockmarked and all that kind of stuff. So I don't have to, that mental work has been done for me. I don't have to second guess why I am making it so ragged looking. But I love the way that this is. Let's see if I can get a zoom in on those nails. The way the sculpt is set up, right in here, yeah, right in there. It just you just water down the brown, and it just lays inside the crease that's already been formed there, the crack in the nail that's already been formed there. I just have to make sure that I am covering, or at least touching, all sides of this, so that there's not like an underside where it's completely white. And I'll decide later when I come back, does it need a dry brush, does it need a highlight on top of that. But I really like what's going on with this nail and that nail there. Now I may go back in with the red and touch around the knuckle there to bring that color back out, and I'm not happy with the webbing between the fingers yet. But this is really coming along. Now the problem is I see right now, is going to be knowing when to stop, because I'm just going to want to keep doing and keep going and keep going. So figuring out when enough is enough is I think going to be a bigger issue. All right, it's time for my lunch break. I've just been doing some more refining and finally getting some red into the mouth there and picking out the teeth. And like I said, refining and defining some of the details on here. I got him zoomed way in. Let's zoom out on him. More areas that I'm happy with. I'm starting to, I'll say I'm starting to stop. I'm starting to stop doing overall painting, and I am doing bit by bit and refining and finishing pieces. You know, there's only so many times you can paint over a wide area of something before you start to overwork it. And that's where I'm at. I'm happy with all the major colors, all the main color areas, and now I'm just going to go in and start refining some of the, all the rest of the areas. There's some colors here I'm not happy with. I don't like that. I need to fix that. The colors on his haunches, I kind of like this side better than that side, so things like that. But definitely there are some bits that I am done with. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, the last work day of the week. Last work day on this dragon, let's be honest. I am already cleaning up some of the paints because I feel this will be the last work day. And I had thought about putting it on a base to kind of level him up like this. And then I realized if I put him on a base, then I am cementing him literally into a particular setting. And I don't know how this character is going to be used. Like I said, it's not mine. I'm doing it for a friend. So if I put him on a grassy knoll, then it doesn't work inside a dungeon. If I put him on a rocky stone floor, then he doesn't work if he's supposed to be, outside. If I put him in a pile full of treasure, then I'm locking him in that way. So I'm figuring it's better off just to leave him and let the future owner decide how best to display him. I do want to put a flat coat over all of this because I'm still finding it hard to shake the toy aspect of it, the rubber duckiness, as I said. So I'm going to put a flat coat over the final version here, and then I'm going to go back in with a clear gloss just on the spots that I think are going to need a clear gloss. I did try a color shifting red. Actually, it is the color change red from the Mission Models line, because I couldn't find a color shifting red in the other paints that I normally use, the Vallejos. So I'm going to take it outside, see how that looks, but I don't want the flat coat to ruin that, so I may have to respray it after I put the flat coat on. Well, I have just finished putting the gloss coat over the eyes and in the mouth, And that can only mean one thing. We are finished. Yes, the flat coat did wonders for this. I really like it a whole lot more now than I did when it had that semi-gloss sheen of toyedness to it, and it doesn't seem to have that anymore. So I'm willing to call this finished. It still has the color shift going on in the leather parts of the wings, which is all I really wanted. And I'm ready to call this dragon. No, wait a minute. I just saw something. So I wasn't quite ready. I need to put some weathering on these on these horns in the back of the leg, and then we'll be ready to call it done. But I think we're ready to, all in all, generally speaking, we're ready to wrap up this dragon.
And that's going to do it, kids. Another week, another model. Fun time doing this dragon. Like I said, it meets an important criteria at this point in that it's going away, so I don't have to worry about trying to find room for it. I like building big kits, but big kits take up a lot of space. And this one fortunately already has a home, so yay. You know, sometimes vinyl kits can get a bad rap for, you know, fit or attention to detail or any of that. This one worked out pretty well, and I was apparently I was much ado about nothing over those wings, because I thought they were going to be a much bigger problem than they turned out to be. So yeah, always happy to learn something new. So until next week. Oh, this is where the schedule starts getting weird. You're seeing this on Friday, Saturday-ish in middle of October. Next weekend, there is an IPMS show in Charlotte. If you're watching this real time, if you are watching this in the future, it's already happened. If you're watching in the past, I want to know how you did it. So I'll be, Steve at Cult TV Man is going to be having a booth at the Charlotte show. It's actually Dallas, North Carolina, outside of Charlotte. That's next weekend. I'll be down there at the helping him out at his booth, because I told him if he ever came this far north, I'd be happy to help him out at his booth. So I'll be there next week, and then the week after, I start my grand the grand vacation, the grand traveling. So don't worry, the Aztek temple will be guarded. It will be secured while I'm gone, so don't get any ideas. But so we got a weird month coming up. So next week I'll probably do something short and sweet so that I can get that done and hopefully get the video uploaded before I leave to go to Charlotte. And then the next week it's just going to be a madhouse. So we'll take it as it goes. So next week, join us for I'll do something. I don't quite know what, but we'll be doing something fun, I'm sure. So until then, be good, be safe, be smart, be nice to each other. Be back next week.